Hello everyone and welcome back to Cooking with Suzanne. So as you may know, we are officially in tomato season. Lots and lots of beautiful tomatoes at the markets, at the farmers markets, I'm sure coming out of your own gardens. It's a wonderful time of the year to really enjoy these beautiful tomatoes. I'd like to start by sharing with you a very simple summer tomato sauce that is absolutely delicious, very pure and fresh with just 2 ingredients, tomatoes, garlic, and a little bit of chili flakes, olive oil, but the main 2 ingredients is garlic and tomatoes. We're going to use plum tomatoes for these. They tend to have less water, more flesh, and they're really very delicious. However, with that said, you can use beefsteak tomatoes as well. So, we want to start with 4 pounds of plum tomatoes. And what you want to do, we do need to take the skin off, so just make a little X on the top of your tomato and submerge it in some boiling water. This only takes about 5 to 15 seconds. You'll actually start to see the skin separate from the tomato. It takes very little time. And then just remove it. I have a tray here with a cooling rack, which we would set all of our tomatoes down on this tray with the cooling rack. So 4 pounds is what you would need. And I am sure that that has already been about 15 seconds. So let's take it. I'll put it over here. I have one already peeled and ready to go, but we will peel that one as well. So you just need a little paring knife. Here is 1 plum tomato that is already peeled. I did take the core out, but I took it out after I blanched it. Then you just want to split it in half and then quarter it again so that you have quarter tomatoes, slices. And then all you want to do is just take a spoon and go in and remove the seeds. You can use your fingers too if you prefer. It's not hard to do. And then we'll dice it. If you have a food processor, you could take all 4 pounds of your tomatoes and dice it that way. Here, I just diced this by hand. Here we go. Let's just get rid of that. And you will see I have a bowl full of, this is almost the 4 pounds right here of beautifully diced tomatoes. So this is all set and ready to make our sauce. Once you seed it, you just want to go in and dice it up, or you can use your food processor and do it that way. So just, and you know, in regard to doing your prep work and dicing, it's really important to always have your legs so that your weight is on both legs. So you separate your legs and you plant yourself so that you have your weight on both legs, which is really important. Also, relax your shoulders. A lot of times people scrunch up and try to work, and it just puts a lot of tension in your shoulders. So actually think about that before you start doing your prep work. It does help, and it's more relaxing, and you'll enjoy it just a little bit more. Now in the meantime, let's talk about the garlic. We are going to use, for 4 pounds of plum tomatoes or beefsteak tomatoes, we're going to use 10 cloves of garlic. I know it sounds like a lot, but if you cook your garlic properly, it will be perfect. So I like to use my mandolin to slice the garlic first before I go ahead and dice it. I find that it's a little bit easier this way. This isn't necessary, however. You can chop or dice your garlic any way you please. The only thing to remember, I wouldn't use a garlic press here because you release too much of the juices from the garlic, and you don't want to do that. You want to keep all of that wonderful flavor inside the garlic. So once your garlic is nice and thinly sliced like this, it's actually very easy to go ahead, especially if you're doing 10 cloves, which is quite a bit. It's actually very easy this way to get it very nicely diced, nice and small. You want this nice and small. I tend to keep my sauce chunky like this. I don't puree it. However, there are times, depending on what I'm using the sauce for, I would puree it. But if you're not going to puree it, you want to make sure that the garlic is nice and small and dispersed throughout your sauce. So that's why it's really important to chop this nice and small. And I have a pot behind me, and I have it on low, heating up. And we're going to start with about 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil for the 4 pounds and 10 cloves of garlic. Along with that, I'm going to add, so I have 2 bay leaves and a half teaspoon of chili flakes. So let's start with 2 tablespoons of olive oil into our pot, which I do have on low. I like to put my bay leaf in first, and you'll see it sizzle just a tiny bit, and it'll help to release, because these are not fresh bay leaves. If you have fresh bay leaves, definitely go ahead and use them, but these are dry. So now I can go ahead and turn up the heat, and I can add my half teaspoon of chili flakes. And we will go ahead and put in our garlic. And you can hear it sizzle just a little bit, so it's hot enough. And I'm just going to bring this forward so that you can hear it. Now what you want to do is cook this for about a minute. All right, you're not looking to brown the garlic at all, but it's very important to add some tomatoes a little at a time to make sure that you get all the garlic off the bottom of your pot. If any of the garlic is sticking to the bottom of the pot and you don't release it with some of the juices of the tomatoes, that garlic will eventually burn, and you don't want that to happen. So, and the reason the garlic will stick a little bit at the bottom, because this is really nice fresh garlic, and there, it smells great. This only takes about a minute. And then all you're going to do is add your tomatoes. I don't add them all at once though. I do it a handful at a time so that we don't cool our pan down too quickly. We want to keep it nice and hot. Okay, so now we can go ahead and put in a nice spoonful of our tomatoes. And this is where I am now picking up all the garlic out of the bottom of the pan and making sure it's totally released into the tomatoes, which it is now. Looks really good. Now I can raise the heat because I really want to keep my pan nice and warm. And let's put in another spoonful. And this is a good time. For 4 pounds of tomatoes, I would say that we need about a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. So let's start with 1 teaspoon here. One thing about tomatoes, they really do need their salt, for sure. I have a little bit of organic sugar, and I'm going to put just a half a teaspoon of organic sugar just to kind of pull out the beautiful sweetness of the tomatoes. Not a lot. All right, this is still nice and hot. I have it on high, so I can go ahead and add our tomatoes again. We'll add our last batch along with another teaspoon of kosher salt. Once it's all bubbling beautifully, you lower your heat and simmer it partially covered for 45 minutes, and your sauce is done. If you do want a very smooth sauce, you can go ahead and pass it through your blender, or you can use an immersion blender, or you can leave it just like this. So now I think we can add the remainder of our tomatoes. It's still bubbling nicely. And let's go ahead and add our last teaspoon of kosher salt. Okay. Okay, it's bubbling all around the sides. It looks very good. So now I can lower it. I will partially cover it. I don't cover it all the way. We'll put it on low and we will let that simmer. We'll set a timer for 45 minutes and it will be done. In the meantime, I'll just talk to you about the fresh herbs that I like to put in. Well, before that, let's even talk about the tomato one last time. Let's make sure this looks good, and it does. So, all you have to do is just take the skin off of your plum tomatoes or beefsteak. It comes off very, very easily. And you don't want to overcook these. You just want to get it so that you can get the skin off. As I said, about 5 to 15 seconds is plenty of time to do that. And then take out the core. And then go ahead, split it in half, quarter it, and then you're able to remove all the seeds from here. So here is my pot of tomatoes that I just made, and I just want to talk about the herbs. Always take away your 2 bay leaves, and I like to let my sauce cool completely and then put in my herbs so that my herbs don't turn. And only because I probably won't use the tomato sauce today. If you were going to make your sauce and eat it right away, well then of course put in your herbs right away. But if you're going to refrigerate this and say maybe have it tomorrow or the next day, make sure you let your sauce cool down completely. Put in your herbs, they will stay nice and vibrant, and then when you heat it up, all that flavor will come through. So for 4 pounds of tomatoes, 10 cloves of garlic, I would use about 1/4 cup of fresh basil chiffonade, which we will do here. And a little, I have oregano in the garden, so I'm going to use a little bit of oregano, about 1 tablespoon. If you don't have it, you certainly don't need to put it in. I will say, if you don't have fresh herbs and say you are making this and you'd like to use your dried herbs, by all means go ahead. The only thing is that you do want to heat up your dried herbs, and you'd want to put them in with your garlic and your chili flakes so that the flavor really comes through. So if I'm going to use 1/4 cup of basil, so you could probably use about, well, they say that per tablespoon of fresh herbs you use a teaspoon of dried. That's the rule of thumb. So if you want to go ahead and use dried herbs, that's how you would do it. Okay, so I'm piling up the basil leaves and I'm just going to roll them. You want to not, I'm almost kind of using more of a, kind of like a train. You don't want to really go down. You want to kind of saw back and forth so that this way here, none of the oil from the herbs is going into your board and it's staying directly in the herbs. So here we go. I'm getting close to the edge, so I'll take my time here. And what you're trying not to do is to chop it and chop it and chop it, and then it loses its flavor and also the color. The best way to store basil is you pick your basil from your garden, put it in a bag, a plastic bag, and it likes to be in a cool, dry place. So if you have a basement, your basement is a good place to keep it, and it'll last quite a bit longer if you do it that way rather than refrigerate it. So that's the best way to store your basil. Now we can go ahead and put our basil directly into our tomato sauce. And as I said, I do have some oregano. So let's put in, and of course you know that oregano and marjoram are very interchangeable. So if you happen to have marjoram and you don't have oregano, you can certainly use marjoram here. Okay, I think that will be about a tablespoon. Let's just bring this all together. Try to bring it as close together as I can so that we only do one quick chop here. You don't want to keep going and chopping over our herbs because that's when we lose it. Okay, so here's a good tablespoon of oregano. We'll put that in and then just give this a stir, and our tomato sauce is complete. You can store this in quart containers and you can freeze this sauce. It freezes really well. This is a really nice, very versatile. You can use it so many different ways. And we will be preparing a few dishes in the upcoming videos using this particular tomato sauce. So let me just come around so that you can get a good view of the tomato sauce. So there you have, you can see the garlic, you can see all of the fresh herbs, and it is absolutely delicious. I think that you can see this is very easy. It doesn't take all day to make a nice pot of sauce. So thanks so much, everyone. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Let me just very quickly go over the ingredients one last time. 4 pounds of plum tomatoes, 10 cloves of garlic, a half a teaspoon of chili flakes. You can put in a pinch of sugar if you'd like. A good teaspoon and a half to 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, and 2 bay leaves with a couple of tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, and you are good to go. So thanks so much. I hope you're enjoying these classes. Please subscribe to our cooking channel, Cooking with Suzanne Fine Regional Cuisine. And if you have any comments, please add comments. Please send me your photos. I always look forward to it. I do have a few requests that I will be preparing and teaching in the very near future, and I look forward to that as well. So if you have any requests, any comments, take some photos, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you again soon.